students, and welcome once again as we proceed with our final topic of the year. Yes, it's true. We are on solar energy here, and yesterday we talked about what did we talk about yesterday? We talked about five types of solar energy use after discussing what solar energy is in the broadest sense. And today, during our lesson today, we are going to be talking specifically about passive and active solar heating. So, without further ado, let's get right into our lesson for today, beginning with the passive solar heating. And let's start with a question here. Have any of you ever left a car parking in a lot in a sunny day? And we've had some warm sunny days recently. It's been lovely. But have you ever left a car parked in a lot on a warm sunny day, gone inside shopping all day, and come back out, open up the door to the car, and been like, whoa! Been blown away by the heat energy pouring out of that car? Oh, yeah. Well, if you have, you understand what passive solar heating is all about. You see, passive solar heating is all about the direct use of solar radiation to transfer heat from one place to another. And so that example that I gave of the car being warmed up by the heat, that is a superb example of passive solar heating. You don't have to do anything other than close the door and keep the windows up in order for passive solar heating to take effect. And if we look at this picture here, this diagram of a uniquely structured home, you can see that this house is designed to take full advantage of passive solar heating. And passive solar heating is free. You don't have to pay for it. The sun shines, You don't have to turn it on. But notice how this home is designed. Let me point some things out to you, okay? It's obviously in a temperate climate. It's not near the poles, it's not near the equator, because these two different yellow bands are illustrating the different angles of sunlight that strike this home at different seasons of the year. For instance, in this large yellow band, it is illustrating the lower angle of the sun during the winter season. And the higher angle obviously is indicative of the summer season. Now, if you look at the way this house is structured, it is structured in such a way that the living space has this canopy over the porch area that prevents the hot summer rays from entering the windows down below where you live in order to keep it cooler during the summertime. But during the wintertime, the sun's rays are allowed to enter the windows in order to heat it up during the wintertime. Do you see the difference between the seasons of the year? And so obviously this house has other design components that utilize the north side of the house where it's cooler year round and the southern side of the house where it's warmer year round, the different angles of the sun and the openness of the windows in order to take full advantage of the passive solar heating at different seasons of the year. Here again is another picture which shows the placement of windows on a house can be very strategically located in order to take full advantage of the different angles of the sun at different seasons in order to maximize the amount of heat energy from the sun or minimize the heat energy from the sun, depending upon the season, which has a direct impact on your energy costs for your home. Hey, everybody's about saving money, especially if you're the one paying the bills. So if you can design your house in such a way that it's going to cost you less to heat it in the winter or cool it in the summer, why not? A design consideration is like free money down the road if you're going to be living there a while. So again, this particular house is taking advantage of a roof overhang to prevent the hot solar rays in the summertime from beating into the windows, but taking full advantage of the lower winter sun in order to warm up the inside. Another way, especially this time of year when people are starting to consider opening their pools for the summer season, is putting water covers on pools. Now, some people have great success with this, others maybe not so much, but it depends on how much sunlight is actually hitting the surface of the pool. And there are different designs of water covers for pools. This picture here on the left, to me, it looks like a bunch of lily pads. And these round circular pads are obviously darker in color, which are going to absorb the infrared radiation from the sun a little bit more effectively, and then transferring that heat energy to the water so that your swimming pool is nice and warm. Over on the right hand side, we've got a roll solar cover for a pool. It's like a blanket to help prevent the heat energy from escaping at night. So you definitely want to read the instructions on any water cover for a pool, whether it should be on during the day or on at night, in order to keep your pool at that ideal temperature for you, so that you can swim in the pool without getting cold. Now, with passive solar heating in general, there are some limitations. And we'll be talking about limitations for each of these different sources of solar energy. And the obvious limitations for passive solar heating include cloudy and rainy days and nighttime hours. Now, I mentioned regarding nighttime hours, some pool covers can help prevent the heat energy from escaping, but be that as it may, the sun simply doesn't shine on the surface of the earth that is experiencing nighttime. So that is certainly a limitation of passive solar heating. Okay, so that's passive solar heating. Let's move on to active solar heating. And as we do, think about a time when you may have gotten into a car with leather seats and metal buckles that have been heated up by the sun, and it might make you scream a little bit and in pain and agony as your bare skin comes into contact with the hot metal or the hot leather in your automobile. So don't let that happen to you. So sometimes you don't want passive solar heating to take place. But let's move on now to active solar heating. Active solar heating requires a little bit more forethought, planning, design, and construction in order to take full advantage of that free solar energy. In particular, active solar heating is when we collect and store heat energy from the sunlight for later use. Let me give you a quick example that might help illustrate this. Maybe some of you have experienced this. I know it happens on the school every day. But you take a brick building or a stone building, and on the southern side of that building, the brick or the stone may be heated up by the sun all day long. Now, after the sun sets, and it's not uncommon that I might leave the building when the sun is fairly low on the horizon. And if I go outside on the southern side of the building and I touch the brick or the stone, it still feels hot, or at least warm, even after the sun sets. Why? Because that brick or that stone has been absorbing heat energy through the day, and it loses the heat energy slower than the air in the atmosphere loses the heat energy. So even though the air temperature might go down, the temperature of that brick or stone might stay warmer for a longer period of time. And if you think back earlier in the year when we learned about heat energy and we learned about specific heat capacity, you may remember that certain materials like water have a high specific heat capacity. Takes a long time to warm them up, but then it takes a long time to cool down, as opposed to something like sand that heats up and cools down very quickly. So there are different materials that can be used to collect and store heat energy from the sunlight for later use. Check this diagram out, for instance. Here we have a home with not photovoltaic cells on the roof to generate electricity, but solar panels or solar collectors on the roof. And what a solar collector does is collect heat energy, not transform sunlight into electricity, but take heat energy from the sun. And the way it does that is by piping through a liquid. Oftentimes it is an oil-based liquid, not water, or it would freeze in the wintertime. But this liquid that would have a very low freezing point would be piped through these solar collectors, the dark solar collectors absorbing a lot of heat energy from the sun, heating up that liquid, whatever it might be, and that liquid comes out superheated into a tank. And maybe that tank is filled with a solid material or a liquid material that helps to store the heat energy for later use. So if this is very well insulated, all of this heat energy that's coming into this unit, if it's really well insulated, that heat energy can stay in that unit even into the darkness hours of the night. And if that heat energy from this unit can then be piped into the house through a heating unit, well, you can save a lot of energy based on taking advantage of this type of collection and storage unit, which is called active solar heating. Again, active solar heating utilizes a solar collector, a device that captures and traps the infrared heat from the sun. Again, unlike a photovoltaic cell, which we'll get to tomorrow, you may see units like this on the roofs of houses. Maybe some of you even have solar collectors on your houses, or maybe some of you have a solar collector for your swimming pool. It works the same way. But this device that captures and traps the infrared heat from the sun then is able to transfer that heat energy, not necessarily the liquid, but that heat energy to other places of your house or to your swimming pool or wherever heat energy is required. And again, this can take place even when the sun isn't shining. So these units can be a lot more effective and economical than just passive solar heating alone. These active solar heating devices transfer this heat energy to some other substance. And it can be, as I said in the beginning example, as easy as a brick or stone arrangement in the front of your home that receives heat energy from the sun all day. That energy can be transferred and transmitted over a longer period of time. Another way to think about this, and maybe you've gone barefoot in the summer and you've stepped on the grass and it's, relatively comfortable, maybe even cool, but then you jump over to the driveway, maybe a dark colored driveway. How does a dark driveway feel barefoot in the summertime on a sunny day? Your tootsies get burned a little bit, don't they? You got to scoot back off of there unless you've got a water sprinkler or a hose to cool off your feet. You probably can't stand it for very long. Why? Because that dark colored pavement is a material that is not only absorbing, but it's also storing that heat energy. Chances are, when the sun sets, that asphalt driveway is still going to be warm for a period of time. So once again, here is the basic system of active solar heating. Here we have solar collectors. And again, and in this example, it's using glycol, which is a type of liquid with very low freezing point. But this glycol liquid is circulating through the solar collectors, heats up from the sun, and that warm glycol comes into a coil, into a water tank, and then the water is used to store that heat energy for later use. And you can see that the solar exchange tank then transfers the heat energy into an existing hot water heater that goes right into your home. So this can be utilized as a supplement to your normal hot water source, whether you use electricity, oil, gas, or whatever or wood to heat your hot water. A basic solar hot water system can be used to supplement that. Free energy from the sun can supplement and save you a lot of bucks down the road. Now, just like passive solar heating, there are limitations, obviously, with active solar heating. And the limitations, as you can imagine, are sunshine. When the sun isn't shining, then there is no more input of heat energy into the active solar heating unit. And eventually that heat energy will dissipate once it is used. And you want to maximize the efficiency so that it can be used for longer periods of time. But obviously, a limitation is lack of sunshine. So we're going to stop it there for today, just discussing these two, and we'll finish up the rest of our notes tomorrow. So until tomorrow, I'll say bye-bye.